I'm really looking forward to this next session. And we have a little bit of a different format going from here. We will hear of 4 different ideas, approaches, companies. Again, nothing is being sold, I assume, by my 4 colleagues now, our 4 colleagues now. And what we will do in this session is basically listen to speed presentations of 10 minutes each and probably consolidate your questions at the very end. Otherwise, it would be startup shop sway, and probably we don't want that. So I would suggest we go first into the presentations and then do all the questions and comments that you might have as an audience together. Let's get started with Neil Black Christensen, who can come on screen now. I saw you were all very hungry, guys, to test your cameras already. Neil is a sales director at Maurissier. He has a 20-year plus career in scholarly publishing and information services, holding a range of prior roles in sales, business development, and editorial for scholarly publishing and technology organizations, including Mungsgård. Well, that is not a technology organization as far as I know, or was. Blackwell, Nature Publishing Group, Wiley, University of California Press, Ansilo and Cactus. Now we are getting into technology. Research Square Company, Knowledge Unledged, and as a consultant. From the KU component, you can see that Neil and I have been working together, and still he followed the invitation, which I'm glad about, into this. Neil is based in the US. Maurissier is based in Berlin and the US and all over the place. Neil, 10 minutes over to you. Tell us what you guys do and how this helps research and primarily publishing integrity.
Perfect. I started my clock now. So I'm not going to sell anything, but I do have sales in my title, right? So whatever I say, it may come off as sales. But I'm primarily going to show you how we think about research integrity or integrity management and solve for some of that. And then you make up your own mind, of course. But there's no way of me doing that without also showing you what it is we do. I'll start by sharing my screen. Let's see. Boom, boom, boom. Here you go. You see my screen now? Perfect. All righty. So, yeah, thank you for letting me pitch. As I said, I'm Neil. I'm one of 3 sales directors at Maurissier, and Maurissier or Maurissier or however you want to pronounce it. We are a workflow organization that provides state-of-the-art submission and review systems that people, we think, enjoy using for abstracts, proceedings, and soon also journals. And across these, we are also a neutral and an independent intermediary marketplace that develops shared infrastructure for integrity workflows. So for organizations that may feel a bit disintermediated because of consolidation in areas of author systems, submission systems, institutional sales, production, and hosting, we try to offer an opportunity to retain editorial systems independence and interoperability. We don't reinvent the wheel, right? There are already many integrity supporting services available and more coming. So for research integrity, we try to offer an easy and flexible sort of combination of what we think are best of class decision support and analytics from many different parties. Parts of these integrity services can also be used by universities, labs, and funders, to promote research compliance. Don't take it from me. This is what Miriam Maus from IOPP says about interoperability and working with us to take advantage of technologies. So we try to proactively combine the capabilities of different parties in Integrity Manager, including some of our own, and then we overlay it with analytics. And this is just a snapshot to try and sort of illustrate how we're building this combination of tools and services that can be used. But I think it works better if I show it in practice. So let me quickly try and demo what this looks like in practice. So here, how do I start this? Our integrity manager can be used in three ways. One, it's already baked into some of the other workflows that we provide. So proceedings and soon a journals manager, sort of as microservices that can be called at different stages in those workflows. Two, it can be integrated with other submission systems, APIs, SFTPs. I mean, there are many different ways of exchanging data. And then three, as a standalone web application. And because time is limited today, I thought, okay, let me try and demo the standalone web application to give you some context. We call this Integrity on Demand. So let me just move that out of the way. So you have this submit request here, right, where you can upload manuscripts in this case, right? It could also be automated. We can take in feeds and so on, but this is just to show you the on-demand piece. You have analytics, where across all the papers that you run against the service, right, you get like some trends and occurrences for the different things that are found. And this is an area that we're constantly developing. There's going to be more like trends and correlations data coming in to this. Then, of course, you have all the different batches you upload. You know, it could be 100 papers, it could be 3, it could be 1, it could be any amount, really. So let's try and open one of them. So here you see a batch of papers. You can continuously add to this, right? So you could go in and add an additional paper. You can also look for analytics, again, right, at the batch level. And if you want to see the papers related to one particular signal, you can hit one of those buttons to see that. Let's see. Let me get back. Oh, I went one step too far. That's okay. And then you can also search across these, right? If you're looking for particular names, authors, whatever, you can do like some filtered searching here. But let's start with the first paper. So there you go. So as I mentioned, we sort of integrate a number of checks that are from lots of different parties, and then we mix it with some that we also provide. In this case, it shows some flags for similarity score and image duplication. Now, of course, similarity score, this is already a published retracted paper, so of course it does that. We let customers decide whether they want to enable their Authenticate accounts or if they want to use copy leaks. We have both already integrated, and here you see an example of a copy leaks report. Oh, no, this is in the way. Let me move that out of the way. Image duplication is in partnership with Image Twin. And in this case, right, Image Twin identifies that there are 16 possible duplicates in the paper. And when it looks across its growing database, I think of now like 50 million images, there are no duplicates. And you can pick up the report here. This was, of course, a paper that was retracted. You know, some of these duplicates are benign. This paper was retracted because of some issues with figure 4 and 5. Jumping to another example. Here, it shows some indications for AI-generated text, retracted papers and references, and paper milling. So the AI-generated text is done in partnership with copy leaks. Again, this may be completely benign and okay, all depending on the editorial policy of the journal. We just try to give the screening staff, the editorial team, an opportunity to spot things in case it's not declared or in case it triangulates with some other signals of what may be going on. But in many cases, it's totally fine, right? Retracted papers and references is something we do using Retraction Watch and, which is now Crossref, right? Where we pick up on references to retracted papers. Now, this may be totally fine in many cases, but, if you're citing something that's very old, that's maybe a flag. And if there are other indicators that are going off, then it helps editorial team sort of triangulate issues with the submission. Paper mill is done in collaboration with Adam Day, Clear Skies, right? And it checks for similarity of papers believed to have originated from paper mills. There's not a guarantee, but it tries to identify them and flag if it thinks there's something going on. With all these checks, right? I think we have to keep in mind that they show findings that sometimes are just benign mistakes. And then we just help people triangulate signs to make those determinations sooner rather than later. And then the third and last example here, you have over-citations, tortured phrases, and again, some paper mill. The over-citations is a Moishe check, right, where we look to see if the same author is cited more than 3 times, and if that represents more than 10% of the citations, that setting can be changed. Maybe your organization wants something different, 5 times, 15%. That's a customizable setting. Close that. Tortured phrases is in partnership with the problematic paper screener, PPS, and the work of Dr. Kabanak. Sometimes tortured phrases, right? It could be benign. It could just be a typo, even though it's maybe peculiar typo. Maybe it only happens once, right? But maybe it's repeated like 11 times through a paper. Maybe there's sort of co-indications of paper mill activity. Maybe there are other things that will make editorial staff want to give it a think. There we go. So across all these checks, the way we think about this is checks are constantly evolving, right? Oh, and that's my 10 minutes. So let me shut that off and quickly wrap this up. So you determine which checks you want enabled. And the way we think about it is Integrity Manager, really, we're trying to evolve it to offer the best tools available at any time as a neutral party. Integrate your preferences for checks in one go, so you don't have to wait for years for individual clunky and expensive integrations, and allow you to run analytics across. Enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Neil. Impressive workflow solutions of the ones that we are looking at today. The next one to go for is reviewer credits. Full disclosure, you probably know that I'm involved with it. But Gareth, who is presenting today, always has a way of adding new features. Gareth Dyke has a PhD in paleontology, imagine, and worked for 20 years as a researcher before moving into the field of scholarly publishing. He is the editor-in-chief of a Taylor and Francis journal called Historical Biology and has lots of experiences connecting researchers with publishing solutions. Gareth has worked for Charlesworth, Top Edit, Addons, Springer Nature in Research Square, and is now the academic director of Reviewer Credits. He is also a consultant with Mavericks and Bentham Science Publishers. And to add to our international roster today, he is based in Hungary. Over to you, Gareth.
Wow, thank you so much. It's great to be here. Great to have the chance to do this. Gareth is my name, as Sven mentioned. And as a recovering academic, as Sven also mentioned, I've been involved in peer review in a variety of different ways for more than 20 years. As a researcher, performing peer review, which we'll talk about in a moment, dealing with peer review as an editor, and also hearing and experiencing and, I would say, like lots of issues in the peer review process. So reviewer credits is a great thing, in my opinion, like a way of trying to help researchers with the peer review process and a way of building out the peer review process and managing that as a key component of research integrity, which of course is what we've been talking about in this session all day. And so to get started, I remember when I was a PhD student, one of my first interactions with the peer review process, my supervisor talking to one of his friends on the phone about 2 papers that they both had in peer review at the time on pterosaurs, which are a kind of close group related to dinosaurs that used to fly around in the sky in the Cretaceous. And my supervisor said, "I'll give your paper an easy ride if you give my paper an easy ride. And so that was one of my first interactions with the peer review process. It's a system open to abuse, as we all know, simply laziness. And this has, of course, led to lots of problems in the publishing industry in terms of retractions in particular recently. And generally at Reviewer Credits, we're very engaged with the researcher community. We spend a lot of time talking and working with the reviewer community. And of course, this is one of the stickiest points in the research cycle, because if you're a successful publishing academic, you're also going to be doing lots of peer review. But researchers have issues with the peer review process. We know that a little bit as publishers, and I'm always very surprised at the disconnect between publishers and the research community. I mean, we know things like researchers don't like getting hundreds of emails. They get suspicious of certain journals and publishers. They often feel, as I'm going to talk about in this presentation, that they're not being rewarded or recognized for peer review, or even that they're working for free. And I 100% agree with the points that Phil was making in his presentation earlier, that this is a socio issue, a societal issue amongst researchers, but also the way that researchers get incentivized is just really bad for the whole process. When I was publishing papers in Nature and Science in my research career, nobody really bothered about what the contents of those papers were. They were just very happy at my institutions that we could get our papers into those kinds of journals. So we at Reviewer Credits are working to change the system a little bit and help with the process for researchers. And we know that this isn't working. We know that reviewers are unhappy with peer review, and so are publishers, of course, as the slide here quite succinctly points out. Like 15,000 years of peer review were performed in 2020 alone. We all know, if we're working as editors, I do this every day, many emails need to get sent just to find a reviewer for a paper. Many reviewers decline those peer review requests. Many have never received any training in peer review. And I would agree with this stat. Absolutely. Journal editors say that the hardest part of their job is finding willing reviewers. And it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work. And at the moment, there's not much movement, as I'm sure Phil will agree, at institutions, funding agencies at the national level to really start to recognize peer review as part of the research process, for people to get proper credit, for researcher reviewers to get proper credit for the work that they do for journals and publishers. So that's where Reviewer Credits comes in. And I'm absolutely not selling anything. As a former academic, I'm really bad at that kind of thing. But Reviewer Credits provides 5 key services. Reviewer Finder, we help journals and publishers to find best fit peer reviewers. We have identity checks, which is really unique. The reviewers on our platform have been double verified, so we definitely know who they are. That enables journals and publishers to protect the integrity of their publications with personal and academic email and so on. We have a big network of reviewers, so publishers and journals can tap into this resource, people ready to perform peer review. And reviewers get rewards on the platform. They also get certification. And I like this platform very much. The initial idea, of course, was to provide rewards for reviewers. But what Reviewer Credits does is it guarantees that the review requests coming to researchers, people like me, are actually coming from credible journals, journals that are matched to their experience and that will enable them to really get ahead in their career. So they don't have to worry anymore about all of those emails that they might get from other publishers. They get requests for review through the Reviewer Credits system. They know that those requests are going to be matched to their expertise and that those requests will help them to advance their career. We did quite a lot of work talking to reviewers. We talk to researchers and reviewers all the time, and it's quite striking the discrepancy between, for example, what peer reviewers want to receive. You can see here that over 80% of reviewers would like to get money or APC discount tokens from publishers compared to what they actually get for their efforts. And you can see that they get certificates and APC discount tokens most of the time. So that's a starting point for some of the rewarding work that we do at Reviewer Credits. But again, let's emphasize, in the past 2 years, how often have you actually been rewarded as a researcher reviewer for the work that you've done for journals? 2/3 said not at all, or in less than 25% of cases. And do you think, Mr. Reviewer Researcher, that if I give you an incentive, that's going to have a positive effect on your willingness to review? Very much. To some extent, people do want to get rewards. They know that they're not going to get recognized potentially by their institutions for the work that they do as reviewers, and they feel that they're not getting anything back, even though this is, for academics, something that they feel that they should be doing as part of their service to the community. So that's really, really, really important. So at Reviewer Credits, we are building an accountable, accessible, and accurate peer review network that will help researchers with the peer review process. They'll get training, they'll get certification, they'll get matched to incoming journal peer review requests that really will help them in their careers. And that's a good thing for researchers above all, but it's also a good thing for publishers and journals, because you will get access to willing, accredited, trained, and verified reviewers. So our platform is accessible. It is fundamentally aimed at enhancing the careers of reviewer researchers. As I mentioned already, we love peer review because it's so sticky. If we're talking about the sales cycle, for example, we know that if you are a researcher, you're also going to be doing, or at least getting asked to do, lots of peer review. So at the same time, we're big proponents of open peer review. We've heard about that a little bit in earlier presentations today. And we continue to do what we can to advocate for change, in particular, as Phil was saying in his presentation, in the academic recognition of peer review, because as a society, we need to work much more closely with researchers, and we need to take a holistic view in order to root out and identify many of the problems that we see in terms of research integrity, and in particular in terms of peer review. So if people aren't transparently being rewarded, recognized, and certified for their efforts, then they're not going to do the best possible job. In fact, they may even do a bad job. So reviewer credits, that's what we're all about. Agile, open, and curious. And thank you very much for your attention and the chance to do this presentation today.
And energetic, obviously, Gareth. Thanks so much. Thanks for your presentation. Onwards to John Wilinski. John is the founder of the Public Knowledge Project, known as PKP, and he's a professor at Simon Fraser University. He will speak on the publication Facts label, is based in the US and Canada, and has by far the shortest bio on this whole event yesterday and today. So welcome, John. Great to have you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Sven. My credit being a short bio. I really appreciate the way people are approaching this idea of let me just see. Oh, maybe I'm not going to do this right. I don't want to do a whiteboard. Sorry. Excuse me. I close my whiteboard. Sorry. You think we'd never done this before?
No worries. We are with you.
Okay, that's good. Okay, let's see if this works. Have we got that? All right, I'm here to talk about the publication facts label that you now see. I'm going to give you a moment or two to absorb it while I talk quietly in the background. The publication facts label should be somewhat familiar, ring a bell for those of you who consume food, for example, and shop. It's based on the nutrition facts label. It takes a different approach to research integrity. It says that part of the issue is the transparency of the publication. That is, that we have a first responsibility to start sharing better, more effectively, what it is the research process entails. We take these things for granted, but they are not always easy to find. The other aspect of this publication facts label, which would appear on articles, that is, every article would have one as we envision this, and I'll give that context a little bit more substance in a moment. It would appear on articles and speak to the article and the journal. You'll notice that it has the top half is this article and the bottom half this journal. So just as you pick up the peanut butter jar in the grocery store and turn to the back to see how many calories it's going to add to your diet, every article you pick up, you'll be able to view, and I'll show you how that works in a moment, the publication facts label. The important part in terms of context is that this comes from the platform developer perspective. I work with the Public Knowledge Project that develops open source platforms, publishing platform, known as Open Journal Systems, very widely used around the world. And so we are coming at this in terms of our responsibilities for a platform that delivers a transparent picture of what are the scholarly standards that are being adhered to. How is this journal functioning in terms of what is expected of scholarly journals? The other piece of context is we're very much focused on increasing open access. Our publishing platform, Open Journal Systems, is open source. It's freely available. There are 44,000 journals around the world using it, and over 90% of those are open access. And so we see that in an age of information, we have a responsibility to contribute to a counter effect. That is, to an age of the promised age of information, the promised age of the info superhighway. And so part of this is to help the public understand what it is that distinguishes research, and whether this article in fact adheres to that, and why there might be a reason not to trust completely, not to take as fact entirely, given the kinds of questions that have been raised about research integrity over the 2 days, but to say that there is a basis for understanding what distinguishes research as a source of information, and reasons to believe that this article has adhered to the extent, and this journal, to the extent that you see here. Now, the trust factors can get quite complicated, but this is essentially scraping data from inside the platform. The editor is not involved in adding any of these numbers, except insofar as they're turning down articles or that they have a certain rate of publication. So the data is scraped. It can still be forged, if you like. It can still be manipulated, but then there is no foolproof technology. This just raises the bar considerably in terms of the source of information. It can also be monitored centrally. So our vision is this is not something that we're selling. This is something that is open source. We will be introducing it into Open Journal Systems this summer with a pilot of 100 journals. But our larger case is to ask the industry as a whole to consider using a standard like this, to have an organization like Crossref or ORCID, which this label uses to a great extent, certainly ORCID, to monitor and provide a service to journals, and which would install it in their platforms and have some quality control checks. You'll notice the other articles in other journals, for example, what it does is what's designed to do. Let's say at this point, we're not fully implemented at all. What it's designed to do is take information from other journals that use the label and compile that in and do averages. At some point, there would be enough labels in use among enough journals, enough articles that we could discriminate by discipline, because these things do differ by discipline. So ideally, the distribution would be wide enough that you would have biomedical journals sharing and information to that effect. Each of the elements here has an explanation. There's an I button at the bottom, which provides a great deal of detail on the scope of each of them and is designed to work with the public. We have designed this in consultation with 100, well, close to 100 people involved in journalism, high school students, university students, journal editors, journal authors, and community members to get a sense of how this works, how comprehensible it is, whether it makes sense at every point. And we've been continuing to refine the language, adding details. The latest one is days to publication. We got a lot of pushback on the importance of that. And it serves as an integrity check, and it also is informative for authors. So although our primary audience could be said to be the public in an age of misinformation, just as important are authors who are considering the publication. We're getting a lot of, in terms of the integrity initiative, a lot of concern about journals you don't know. You should just trust what your advisor recommends. And we're getting a narrowing of research considerations in terms of us as a researcher. And I would suggest that in itself is a threat to integrity. If you're not consulting the whole of the literature because you have a fear of what you're citing because you're not sure of the source, then you're not doing justice to the concept of research integrity. So let me show you just very briefly how it works in terms of the journal, how it would work as we propose it. Let me just get on here. So this is a journal article. It's a amalgam. That we've put together. This is the article landing page, and at the bottom of the article landing page is the drop down for the publication facts label. So it wouldn't appear all the time. It would get a little tiresome and distracting. We don't expect people to look at it every time. But every time there's an element of importance in the article for you, every time you have a question, should I cite this article? Should I take it to the board meeting? Should I be using it when the Greenland government meets? And you can do a quick, let's get this going, drop it down and have a quick look. The hyperlinks will take you to the reviewer's profiles, not for this article, but for the previous volume. You can see the data availability statement. You can see who are the external funders. This one doesn't have a competing interest, but if there was, you would be able to see that statement. You can see the journal being indexed. And again, the information button will explain each of these indexers, but you can go directly to the indexes. The editor and board members will have profiles that are verified by ORCID, and they will have an ORCID ID that you can check. The publisher has a link, obviously, and the academic society would have a link. We played against this notion of how much detail is important and at what point does it become incomprehensible. We're using the nutrition facts label not only because it's recognizable, at least in Canada and the United States, but because it is the most tested label and design and proven effective that we could find. It has changed consumer behaviors. And so we're hoping it will have the same effect in this field. It has been acclaimed as a brilliant design. And even the black bars, we envision this, the black bars are not a logo, but the black bars serve to indicate that it is a particular label that you will see across publishers, across platforms, across the industry. And I think we need a standard like that. So I want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to have a chance to speak. And Sven, I think that would sum it up for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Great approach to standardize as a ways and means to create transparency for users of journals. That's great. Last but not least, we are turning to Elliot Lump and research signals. Let me give you a quick introduction, which is a little bit longer than John's, I have to admit. So Elliot is the co-founder of Signals, a startup which is restoring trust in research by providing researchers and publishers with signals that help them understand the trustworthiness of articles. In 2018, Elliot completed a PhD in medicinal chemistry at Monash University and the University of Nottingham. Following this, he held several roles at Frontiers, including a role within the strategy and planning team. In 2021, Elliot launched PeerRef, a journal independent peer review platform. Elliot has also consulted for publishers, helping them to grow and optimize their open access business. And now we are all curious to learn more about Signals. I have to admit, I saw a little bit at APE here in Berlin, but let's see where you stand. Over to you, Elliot.
Yeah, thanks, Sven. Okay, see if I can make this work. Okay, you can see my screen, I hope. Super. Okay, hey everyone. Yes, I'm Elliot, and I'm the co-founder of Signals. So I'm the last presentation, I think, so I probably don't need to tell you about these issues, but yeah, research integrity is reducing trust in research. And we've seen it become an existential threat for publishers. We'll discuss the institutional pressure on researchers to publish more and more. And of course, there are these financial incentives for publishers, particularly OA publishers, to publish in higher and higher volumes. And these structures have resulted in integrity concerns across the industry. We think of these at Signals in three different ways. The first is publication fraud. This is things like paper mills where it's a completely fake article. The publication process has been manipulated, and these got published. There's research fraud, which is where there's a real research lab, real researchers with a real grant, but someone in that group, isn't too happy with the result, so they manipulate an image and get it published. And then there are errors. So research is done, someone makes a mistake, they don't realize, but it's published anyway. These are all problems, but what we're really focused on at Signals today is publication fraud. This is what's having a real impact in industry. It's why Wiley is now closing the Hindawi brand. And these structures that I mentioned are not changing, not in the near term anyway. So this problem is going to continue, and we need to find ways to deal with this problem. Okay, so our mission at Signals is to restore trust in research. We want to help the industry to correct the scholarly record where it's gone wrong in the past, but we also want to prevent publication of these problematic articles in the future. And the way we do this is providing publishers, researchers, institutions with insight to help them really quickly understand the trustworthiness of research articles. So the way that we're finding these signals is in a couple of ways. First, we're looking at metadata. So we can surface insight about the trustworthiness of authors by looking at the metadata around the article. This might be who the authors are working with, the author's institutions, what it's referencing, how it's cited, and the citation graph around that. Metadata is like a really good source of information because it's really hard for fraudsters to get away from. It's maintained, but it also improves over time as articles are engaged with, as authors publish more. And the second piece is like researchers and experts. So it got mentioned in some earlier talks about how this isn't just kind of a technology problem and solution, it's also people too. We agree. And we think there's like huge value to taking the questions, the issues, and evaluations that researchers or other experts do on articles and like getting signals out of these. And while if you go on Signals today, it's all metadata, we're actually just about to add our first kind of expert signals into that, which we're really excited about. But what is more exciting is that we're not just taking individual signals, but we network these, into the signals network. So this can amplify signals, it can create new signals that are found in the network. So this allows us to provide like really rich and robust information about trustworthiness of articles, can help us find pockets of highly trustworthy research, but also pockets of paper mills too. And also I think worth noting that we can integrate third-party inputs into this. This could be, say, content-based checks that we don't do ourselves, or it could be publisher data. So we can help you find signals that are inside your data that we wouldn't be able to see from the outside. Okay, so a little bit about the actual product. So we try quite hard to make signals really transparent and easy to use. We want to show, if we're flagging something, like why we're flagging that. So if someone searches an article in Signals, first we'll see a risk score on it. It's going to be low, medium, or high. And this risk is made from the signals that we found in the article. We can also see kind of more detailed information, say about the authors and their previous works below that. But this is the most crucial information that we'd show. There are various ways to interact with signals in its most kind of simple form. We can analyze an individual published article. So you can imagine a researcher, they're about to read an article or maybe cite an article, and they want to check it. So they could quite quickly take the DOI, search it in Signals, very quickly get the signals out. And in this case, they would know not to bother with this article and not reference it because it's got all these signals, plus it's actually retracted. But we don't just look at individual articles. We can aggregate these onto the journal level. This can help publishers identify problems. So the first way we help out is by publishers often know they have a problem, but they don't know where. And if you have a portfolio of hundreds of journals, how do you know where to begin investigating? So we can analyze articles in, say, every single journal of a publisher and aggregate those scores and then give a score for that journal. So in this case, we'd know that journal C is the most risk, and that's where we should start investigating. The next thing we do to take a step further is actually look into that journal and find those issues. So we can provide a dashboard, and then this shows every article and they're prioritized by their risk. So we're going to very quickly look at which articles are causing that risk and investigate those. And we can look at these over different years and see how this changes over time. Of course, that's about published articles. This is also really important to prevent published articles, well, prevent articles that are problematic from ever getting published. And so what we want to in the future, I can start speaking about is really integrating into publisher workflows. So that at the point of submission of articles, we can take the signals out of those, present those to editors or research integrity staff, so they can really quickly make a decision on the trustworthiness of the article. Say, do they want to send it to peer review? Do they want to investigate further themselves? Or maybe they just want to reject it outright. And we also offer consultation, right? So it may be that these don't quite fit the needs at that point. So we can offer custom reports on, say, the performance or issues within journals. We can give assistance in investigating potential research integrity issues in portfolio. Often these research integrity teams are quite small, so we can help out there. But we can also provide guidance in setting up processes and policies if it's a journal right at the beginning of their research integrity journey, or for more mature publishers, we can help them optimize these policies and workflows. So we're quite focused, on the publisher. This is who I think really focused on serving at the moment. Of course, in the ways that I've said, is to prevent the publication of fraudulent articles, but also identify and rectify issues that have already happened. But I also think there's a market here for helping researchers. Can help them identify trustworthy articles, but also help them identify untrustworthy articles so they can exclude them from their research. And then institutions too. This is something we want to think about as we move into the future. Can we help them to check their publication output for risks and help them to quickly resolve any integrity issues? So we've been quite busy recently. We launched our MVP that you can try now in December. That was at STM. I think some of you might have been there. Since then, we've been recruiting a team. This is only going to be possible with having a really great team behind it. We'll be adding these first expert analysis signals. As mentioned, we really want to help serve researchers too. And so we're in the process of building an advisory board of researchers so we can really understand how we can make these signals valuable and important to them. We already have around 15 other verified and some proprietary signals that aren't in signals yet, but are going to be there in the next few months that we're really excited about. We're going to be looking to form strategic partnerships with publishers. We're going to be looking to integrate into third-party infrastructures and other products. As I mentioned, I'm interested also in working with institutions, and we'll look to prototype an institutional product. So if you're from an institution and interested, please reach out to me. We can have a chat. So I mentioned this is only going to be possible if we have a great team building it. I'm one of the co-founders, as Sven mentioned, the introduction of experience in publishing, also founding PeerRef. And the co-founder is Andrew Preston. Some of you may know him from being the founder of Publons and also Cassini. We do have some team kind of lined up, but we're not quite ready to do some announcements here, but that'll be coming soon. So yeah, we're really excited about this. Sure, we announced on LinkedIn in the coming weeks. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Please get in contact. We can arrange a demo. It'd be great to show you, more about what we can do, how this works, and we really want to know more about the research integrity problems you're facing. Anyone can register, create a free account, and try signals out yourself. And please share feedback. So we have a roadmap, but this is very flexible and it depends really on how people are using it and what's useful to them. So yeah, please let me know. Cool. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for today's last presentation, Elliot. I hope that you, as the audience, got a good overview of what colleagues are working on across the field right now. We have time for a few questions. The first I've already collected from the two different channels. So maybe you all switch on your cameras, guys. That's great. I think probably the first question that comes here from Barbara Pope is to you, Elliot. Is Signals a subscription resource or freely available? Probably a little bit early to answer, but let's go for it.
Yeah, so you can go to Signals now, and you can put in a DOI and search and get the signals analysis out of that. And that's free. In terms of accessing kind of a journal dashboard, keeping this up to date, getting submission checks, etc., that will be paid for.
Okay, thanks. Here's another question which goes to you, John, about publication facts. How does other journals and these journals in this section refer to other journals from the same publisher or to other journals in the same field of research?
So there will be a list available on the eye, so you can check which journals it is. The distribution of the journals will depend on how successful the label is. Ideally, it would be journals from all over the world, and ideally there would be enough journals so it would be by discipline. We have a ready means of deciding the discipline basis of journals. So it will begin with a limited set of journals that will be general, and then as it spreads, we would try to discriminate it by discipline across publishers. But that's ahead of us. Right now, we have a label that will be piloted in 100 journals. And so it will be a few years before we see the full. I mean, it depends on the reception and response. So thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions? What I find interesting, and I think we have discussed this in different groups over the last year or so already, is whether publishers, the ecosystem, the industry, whatever you want to call it, researchers are looking for workflow solutions, end-to-end solutions, or kind of individual services, features, whatever you want to call it right now. And probably as a conversation between the four of you, obviously you are representing different approaches, which you can combine or not combine, whatever it is. What do you think? Neil, probably to start with you, I think Moisio obviously is a workflow, more of a workflow or an end-to-end solution rather than it is one single service. It consolidates a lot of individual services. So yeah, what's your thinking? Is there any kind of development over the last months or years there?
I think it's interesting. It's like you get on a call with someone and it's all about workflow. You get on a call with someone else and it's sort of like plug and play, like standalone. You know how it is sometimes when people tell you, oh, if you build it like this, I'll totally be a customer. And then you build it like that and they'll say, oh yeah, but not quite like that. Or I don't have a budget right now. So it's a bit difficult sometimes to know what is it exactly people want. So we're sort of like taking a fairly agnostic approach where we're saying, well, you know, yeah, if you want it as a workflow, I mean, I didn't demo that here, right? We have some very like integrated workflows where you could call these things within. But you could also just use it as a standalone. You know, you upload your paper and off you go. So I think there's pardon my French, right? There's a chair for every ass in the sense that, you know, different people, we're all different. We want different things. Maybe we want different things for different parts of our work days. Maybe sometimes we just want a standalone, but maybe other times when I'm doing something in my workflow over here, I want it to be integrated. So that's sort of the approach we're taking, I think, sort of that agnostic approach. But it's a lot of different things to serve. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was interesting today that when Mike Streeter highlighted also the issues of technology, which isn't always up to the issues that we face right now, because it was probably implemented a decade or so ago. That's probably one of the topics for a next Charleston in between, renovating the infrastructure of scholarly publishing. You know, probably that in Germany, we have a lot of conversations about renovating our railway system. It sounds a little bit like it when you look at established publishing companies. Elliot, what's your view? I mean, this is really, you are really in a very early phase for a product, and at the same time, it feels like you are still between a product and a feature, right? If I see it correctly. Over the last few months that we have been talking about this has been growing. So you are discovering new fields where you are applying signals. But what's your vision, if you want, longer term?
So can you repeat the initial question? I was answering a question in the chat. when you asked the initial one and I missed it. Sorry.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting that we have these two poles, workflow solutions and individual standalone features or products. You have been starting off very narrowly with a feature, basically with one particular product. And now Signals is growing along different use cases, basically. So what's your vision? Do you feel it's the full breadth of the product now, or will it be bigger than that?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it will grow. I think we have to start with the tool, right? We need to know that is useful, and yeah, really brings value. And then research integrity is kind of a or whatever we want to call it, the fraud problem, etc. Is it happens at every stage of the process, not just one. And so I think we need to be kind of this end-to-end solution across publishing. So it's very early, right? We're still like discovering things with publishers, and so I hard to say, but I imagine expanding. Yeah.
And John, I think we had the first conversation about your approach here. When was that? 2 years ago or so, 1.5 years ago. So obviously this has been developing alongside OJS and the system out there. So what was the original driver to get started with something which is not exactly what OJS was meant to be, probably early on, right?
Yes, I think it's for us, we represent a very broad community. 80% of our journals are in the global South. And our concern was, how do we knock on doors and get intro or get entree for these journals? How do we begin to build that trust at a very basic level? So it's a different kind of research integrity question in terms of allowing researchers to feel confident and readers and the public to feel confident. So we actually have a private donor for this project who was a public librarian in Los Angeles. I hope that's not telling too much. There are a lot of them. And she was very concerned about the public's response to research. And her work on the information desk was helping the public be introduced to research. And she said this was always a question because she couldn't be an expert in every area. How do I know what's behind this journal, this article? So she is in a position to support this work. And it seems the perfect point of the open access responsibility. If we're going to make all of this research public, don't we have some educational responsibilities along with that? Or will everyone know what are the good journals or something like that? No, not a chance. So that's really the concept behind it, and getting the industry to buy into it, which is pretty critical. I mean, I think it would serve the open journal community, the open journal systems community largely. But it would really have an impact in terms of the public if we had this spread more widely. It complements the work that was presented by everyone else, that is by Elliot, Neil, and Gareth, and even Phil. So it's not in competition with those ideas, but it's at a different level of immediate transparency. And then beneath that, there can be signals or integrity checks or reviewer support and training and authentication.
Thanks. Gareth, to your question, you mentioned, I think with one side sentence, half sentence, whatever, the question of open peer review, and it came up over and over again over the last 2 days. Do you think that peer review is one of the last unsolved issues of the open science, open access movement? Would you say that making peer review more open would help address some of the issues that we see around research integrity in terms of quality, basically?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. In an ideal world, like it would be fantastic, but we have to get buy-in on that from the peer reviewers who are actually doing the reviews. And we know that when given the opportunity, like in some fields, it's quite normal to provide your peer review in an open and transparent way, whereas in other fields, in my field, for example, it would be very difficult often, especially if you're not being positive about a paper. So yeah, I mean, absolutely, like peer review is like very, very, very fundamental to research integrity and a huge unsolved problem. It would be great if everybody could be incentivized, and I think the key word there is incentivize. You know, if there's a way of, I mean, peer reviews are part of the research life cycle, the research process. So if that can be part of your incentivization at your university, then fantastic. But you know, we have to talk more with researchers, with institutions, to make that happen. Yeah.
Great. I see there are no more questions in the Q&A section. I don't see any in the chat. So with that, I would like to thank not just the 4 of you or 5 of you, 6 of you. John is there as well, I see down there. But every speaker of yesterday and today. I really enjoyed learning a lot from these conversations over the last 2 days. And yeah, I hope it was helpful and a good source of information for everybody who joined. And with that, I would turn over to Leah for the famous last words of this Charleston in between.
Thank you so much, Sven. And I echo your thanks to all of our presenters today and yesterday. And thank you to our attendees for joining us, for asking great questions, engaging with the speakers. The recordings from yesterday are already available on the virtual event page, the same link that you used to join this session. So if you scroll on the right side, they'll have video recordings and the slides from yesterday. And as soon as they're available from today, we'll make those link those in the same place. So thank you very much. I look forward to our next Charleston in between, and we'll be sending out more information on that as they develop. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.